So yeah, I will just go through this from our perspective and actually tell briefly why we actually did this and how we did perform. But just hearing the discussions today, maybe the most important thing here should be the impact that we actually have had, both within the company and maybe even more important outside. All right, let's get through this if the technique works here. Obviously, the climate change is a fact. I don't think I have to address this any further. We have national goals that we are working with, and we have global goals that are being stated within the Paris Agreement. Obviously, we need to do something about this, and I will talk regarding this question from a real estate owner perspective. We're not actually a real estate owner in that matter, that this is not our core business, but we are still working with these questions. So this is just one example of why we are actually addressing this and using this as a driver within our own sustainable transformation. So a little bit about us. We are a part of the Schweizgruppe, active in over 30 countries, so quite a big company. And basically what we have is that we have the complete value chain within the food retail sector. So we are working with both producing the food, the goods, and are selling them in the stores, and also within the waste and recycling management. So in terms of, yeah, we are part of this problem, but I would say even more important that we are actually showing by this example that we are being a part of the solution also, and despite not being our core business, actually are working with this question makes me very proud. So just short about us in Sweden here. We have approximately 200 stores, and a big majority of them is owned by us. So we are working with store development, and this is something that are being worked with in all countries. So from a global perspective, we're a big real estate owner, which means we want to invest in our buildings since we are both the real estate owner and the tenant. So there is a big incentive for us to actually work with these questions. And just a brief overview, we took in 2015 a decision that we wanted to be the front runners in some kind of humble way. We want to drive this transition within the real estate industry, obviously very linked to our upcoming expansion. Then we felt that we needed to do something extra. So we wanted to show exactly, it is very hard since I hear today, and I know there are a lot of actors in Sweden also doing great jobs. So we needed to be unique somehow, and for us, just working with this certification in this project was our way of sticking out and being this unique. So basically what we have seen in our development here is that just moving from this very high set ambitions that we want to be the front runners in choosing to certify our buildings according to the toughest environmental schemes and the highest standard. Obviously we have seen a development in the stores, and this has been very recognized also from our perspective. So I'm very glad to see that this has created the impact that we wanted here. And just moving on and talk a little bit more about the project, I can say from our perspective, the decision why we actually choose to do this, which I hear from the discussions today, that we cannot just wait for the policy decisions. They are upcoming, which is very good, but we need also the industry to move even faster. So due to the collaboration with the Sweden Green Building Council, we chose to participate in this development of this national scheme and create this building in Visby. So this is a short overview of the project. It was basically divided into 3 different phases in terms of the risk management. This was also being obviously handled, since we are talking here about a real estate owner which develops conceptual buildings. It means that we are used to getting things done very quickly and rapidly. Obviously, this doesn't mean that we are not constructing sustainable buildings, but in terms of actually introducing a third-party certification scheme which was under development makes the project a little bit more complex. So the important decision here was to divide this into 3 different phases, where we actually got the time to work together with the Sweden Green Building Council, together with the industry, to setting up these requirements that we see today is being used. And then moving on into the next phase, obviously, also working with this question within the construction phase. And just a short background, I think when I first was introduced to this was a workshop in 2017. So we started working with the definition that was set up in Norway, I think, the Norwegian zero emission buildings. So we are talking about different scopes here and what to include or not within this certification. And basically, I will just mention this very briefly. It has been a lot of work being done by a lot of people. We now have a complete certification system in Sweden, which are actually being used by a lot of important actors, I would say, that represent different segments within this within the real estate industry. So basically, we're working with balancing the climate impact that we are having in the project, and we are talking here from the real estate owner perspective, how this actually can be done in a very cost efficient way. Obviously, we need to, when we are making our decisions, identify what risks are we actually having when entering these types of projects, especially when we are used to design conceptual buildings. So just a brief overview of the starting point. Obviously, the main question here was, since we already have the store fully designed, so it means it takes very short time to deliver the store and start the construction phase, we needed to actually analyze this. What climate impact do we have? What climate impact is basically can be referred to some kind of reference building, and compare these values. Obviously, the next step was, what measures are we required to implement in our store? And I can just mention briefly that, obviously we went from a steel and concrete building in this project to a more wooden store, and we are talking about a structure of glulam, and we are talking about a wooden frame. We are talking about basically the complete building envelope was in wood, and we are also having the foundation being analyzed, basically going through every building part and analyzing this and see how we actually can fulfill the requirement within this certification scheme. So we have this fixed requirement which needed to be verified throughout the project, obviously. And maybe just to mention briefly about the cost-benefit analysis. Obviously, I think I don't know how many real estate owners we have with us today, but from our perspective, this was very important that since we have performed these very special types of buildings, from our perspective, it means a completely new way of thinking within the project. It means, for example, new processes also to handle within the projects. We had to highlight what benefits do we have, and not only talking about the PR value, but actually more important in this case, talking about, for example, wooden stores, which I see now is being actually developed in other countries as well. So I wouldn't say that we only have an impact from Lidl Sweden, but we see development in other countries as well, addressing this question in how we actually can construct stores with very low climate impact, and maybe not just defining a 50% reduction and so on, but talking from this global perspective, I would actually like to highlight that since we are talking conceptual buildings, we're talking a very major real estate owner. We have a quite impact that we can implement in other countries and actually move beyond the requirements within the different countries. So from our perspective, I would say that this has been a very important project, despite the quite high risks at the start. But this was something that we were familiar with. And
Mattias, you have 1 more minute.
Oh, sorry. I will not go into a lot of detail, but obviously we're working with the materials, we're working with the energy and minimizing this. So this is something we want to reduce. And we are also working with the construction phase on the monthly follow-up in actually educating the construction company how they are to do this in their project, and also in terms of the change requests. We have budgets for everything. So we have transportation budget, we have material budgets. So we are setting requirements on the construction companies here, and everything needs to be verified. So obviously this is quite a challenge. But in the end, we see that we actually, if we compare it to a reference building, we see that it's quite 50% or maybe more reduction, but then obviously taking into consideration what has been done in the project, also in terms of the definition of the different baselines. So I think we have a different way of calculating today. So just a brief overview of what has been done from our perspective. Very, very interesting. I think if we have a lot of real estate owners which are building conceptual buildings, I would recommend to use these tools in their project, since this is very important. And I would say that this has gained us knowledge in the end that we need to work in a very early phase. And obviously, in the end, it requires a lot of courage and patience from the management board. So this will be my final words here, and I hope this gave you all a bright insight in what we are doing at the moment, and how we are thinking with these types of projects. And yeah.
Thank you so much.